Breaking Free from Attachment, the Wisdom of Emptiness. Hello everyone. Last time, we explored together the actual practice of wisdom that creates awakened daily life. Today, we're going to slowly, deeply, and comfortably explore the wisdom of emptiness, which is both the most essential teaching of the Great Perfection of Wisdom Sutra and also the concept that's most easily misunderstood. Some of you might be hearing the word emptiness for the first time, but don't worry. The story we're going to unfold together today isn't some complicated philosophical theory. It's practical wisdom that makes our lives more free and happy. Please listen as comfortably as if you're having a deep conversation with an old friend over a cup of tea. When we look at the origins of the word emptiness, or sunyata in Sanskrit, it's really fascinating. This word comes from a root meaning to swell up. It carries the meaning of something that appears to have substance on the outside, like soap bubbles or balloons, but is actually empty inside. But this doesn't mean it's meaningless or hopeless. Rather, it means infinite possibilities. I'm sure many of you have blown soap bubbles as children. When you watched those beautiful bubbles floating and sparkling in the sunlight before disappearing, what did you feel? Rather than sadness, wasn't there something mysterious and beautiful about it? Emptiness is the same way. The fact that everything lacks solid substance isn't devastating news. It's liberating news. One of the biggest sufferings we experience living in modern times is attachment. Attachment to success, attachment to being loved, attachment to being recognized, attachment to possessing things. All day long, our minds are held captive by something or other. The reason these attachments cause us pain is because all the things we're attached to change and disappear. But the wisdom of emptiness we're exploring today is the key that frees us from all these attachments. And it does this not by giving up or suppressing things, but by understanding the true nature of reality. Why do we become more anxious the more we have? The paradox of ownership. It's really strange. It seems like having more should make us happier, but in reality, the more we have, the more anxious we often become. When we get a better house, we worry about losing that house. When we get a good job, we're constantly afraid someone will take that position away. When we meet someone we love, we're scared of losing them. Psychology calls this phenomenon the endowment effect. We assign much greater value to things we own than their actual worth, and we have excessive fear about losing them. According to research by Nobel Prize winner Daniel Kahneman, people feel the pain of losing something 2 to 3 times more intensely than the joy of gaining it. Why does this happen? It's because we see the things we own as extensions of ourselves. My house, my car, my job, my family. When these things are threatened or damaged, it feels like our very self is being attacked. Psychologists call this the extended self. But think about this for a moment. Of all the things you desperately wanted 10 years ago, how many do you actually have now? And of the things you desperately wanted back then but didn't get, how many of them make you think now, I'm glad I didn't get that? I remember a story someone told me. When they were young, their dream was to get into a specific company, but they kept getting rejected and felt devastated. But a few years later, when that company went bankrupt and many employees faced hardship, they realized they were actually fortunate not to have gotten in. Many of you probably have experiences like this. Things that seemed like the end of the world at the time actually led to better opportunities later. This shows how limited and temporary our standards for judging what's good or bad really are. The Great Perfection of Wisdom Sutra explains this phenomenon as upside-down thinking, like seeing reality in a dreamlike delusion. We treat changing, disappearing things as if they were permanent. We give absolute meaning to temporary things and mistake relative things for absolute ones. But this isn't our fault. From childhood, we've been exposed to messages like, you must have things to be happy, you must succeed to be valuable, and you must get ahead of others. This social conditioning has distorted our perception. Psychologist Tim Kasser discovered something interesting through his research on the psychology of materialism. People who prioritize material values are actually more anxious, depressed, and have worse relationships. On the other hand, people who value intrinsic things, like relationships, growth, and contribution, live happier and more satisfying lives. This is something ancient philosophers already understood. The Greek philosopher Epicurus said, "Satisfy natural and necessary desires, but abandon vain desires." The Roman philosopher Seneca said, "If you want to be rich, be content with what you have." Modern economics explains a similar phenomenon through the, quote, law of diminishing marginal utility. Even with the same item, the more you have, the less additional satisfaction you get. The first ice cream is delicious, but the fifth ice cream isn't very tasty. So should we live wanting nothing at all? Of course, that's also an extreme way of thinking. The problem isn't desire itself, but attachment to desire. It's okay to want things and work toward them. But don't make your happiness completely dependent on the results. This is the first liberation that the wisdom of emptiness teaches us. The things we desperately want, the things we think we absolutely must have, are actually not as absolute as we think. Nostin Capra's Waking Up from the Myth of Self***. The most revolutionary part of the wisdom of emptiness is the realization of no self, that there is no fixed self. When people first hear this, many get confused. Then who am I? Does this mean I don't exist? But no self doesn't mean you don't exist. It means that what we commonly think of as me isn't actually a fixed entity, but a constantly changing process. It's like a river. A river clearly exists, but it's flowing and changing every moment. Yesterday's river and today's river are the same, yet different. Take a moment to look at yourself. When you compare yourself from 10 years ago to yourself now, what do you see? Most of your body's cells have been replaced with new ones. Your thoughts and values have changed a lot. What you like and dislike has changed. Even your personality has probably changed significantly. So what makes you you? Many people think it's memory, but according to brain science research, even memory isn't fixed. Every time we recall a memory, our brain reconstructs it anew, and in that process, our current situation or emotions influence and change the memory. Psychologist Dan McAdams called human identity narrative identity. We selectively remember changing experiences, give them meaning, and create a coherent story. This story creates the feeling of me. For example, you could turn a failure experience from school days into the story, I'm a failure, or you could turn it into, that experience made me stronger. Even with the same facts, you get completely different identities depending on what kind of story you weave. What's even more amazing is that multiple stories are possible. Depending on the situation, the other person, or our mood, we tell different stories about ourselves. The me at home, the me at work, the me with friends, they're all slightly different. The existentialist philosopher Sartre said, "Humans are beings who constantly create themselves." This means we don't have a predetermined essence, but create ourselves through our choices and actions. This is very similar to Buddhist no-self thought. Modern neuroscience discoveries support this too. There's no specific area in the brain responsible for self. The feeling of self is a kind of optical illusion created by complex interactions between various brain regions. Just like a movie is made of rapidly consecutive still frames, the self is also an illusion created by a continuous stream of constantly changing experiences. When this realization comes, you experience amazing freedom. You no longer have to be trapped in a fixed image of, "This is who I am." Past mistakes or failures don't define the real you. You can always make new choices, explore new possibilities, and become a new self. Psychologist Carol Dweck's growth mindset research is deeply related to this. People who believe their abilities can improve with effort, growth mindset, actually achieve more than people who believe their abilities are fixed mindset. The realization of no self also frees us from self-criticism and self-hatred. If there's no fixed me to criticize or hate, there are just thoughts and emotions happening in this moment. They pass like clouds. At the same time, we can escape from narcissism and arrogance. If there's no special me, there's no reason for conceit. All achievements and abilities are just phenomena that appear temporarily through the coming together of various conditions. There's a story of a Zen master asking a student, "What was your original face before you were born?" This is a question that breaks down belief in a fixed self. Was there a me before birth? Will there be a me after death? Then what is the current me? When you deeply explore questions like these, you realize how mysterious I is, and at the same time, how flexible and changeable it is. This is the sense of liberation that the wisdom of no self gives. Everything is dancing, discovering interdependence. Along with the realization of no self comes the realization of dependent origination, that everything is interconnected. If there are no fixed individual beings, everything can only exist in relationship. The distinctions between me and you, subject and object, inside and outside, are only relative. To understand this, let me give a simple example. Think about the clothes you're wearing right now. How many conditions were needed for those clothes to exist? First, raw materials were needed: cotton, wool, or synthetic fibers. If it was cotton, seeds were needed, and for those seeds to grow, there had to be the farmer's care, proper climate, rain and sunshine, and fertile soil. For soil to be fertile, countless microorganisms had to be active, and those microorganisms also depend on countless other conditions. When cotton grows, it must be harvested. Farm tools are needed, and to make those tools, metal is required, and to get metal, mines and miners' hard work are needed. The harvested cotton must be processed. Textile technology, machines, electricity, and skilled technicians are all needed. When thread is made, it must be woven into fabric. This also requires complex technology and equipment. When fabric is made, design is needed. The designer's creativity, aesthetic sense, and countless sources of inspiration. In the cutting and sewing process, other craftspeople's efforts go in. The finished clothes must be transported. Trucks, ships, airplanes, and the hard work of drivers and sailors are needed. Finally, how many people's efforts were there until it was delivered to you at the store? Following this path, you can see that ultimately the entire universe is connected. Without sunlight, cotton couldn't grow, and without the Earth's rotation, there wouldn't be proper climate. Without the elements created by stars exploding billions of years ago, Earth itself wouldn't exist. Vietnamese Zen master Thich Nhat Hanh called this interbeing. He said he could see clouds, sunshine, trees, and lumberjacks in a single sheet of paper. Without all of those things, the paper couldn't exist. This interdependence isn't limited to material things. Our thoughts, emotions, personality, and values are all formed through interaction with other people. How many teachers, books, and experiences resulted in the knowledge you have now? Just think about your language. If you use Korean, that language was created and refined by countless people over thousands of years. Every word you use already has meaning assigned by other people. Even emotions that seem most personal are influenced by culture. Modern ecology presents the same perspective. An ecosystem is one giant network, and all living things depend on each other to survive. Just as the extinction of one species has unexpected effects on the entire ecosystem, everything is connected. Systems theory provides similar insights. In complex systems, each element doesn't exist independently. New characteristics emerge through interaction. Individual neurons can't have consciousness, but consciousness emerges from the complex interactions of countless neurons. Quantum physics discoveries are also amazing. According to the quantum entanglement phenomenon, particles that once interacted affect each other instantly, no matter how far apart they are. Einstein called this spooky action at a distance, but it's now accepted as scientific fact. When this realization of connectedness comes, fundamental changes happen. First, you can escape from the feeling of separation. You can break free from the loneliness of thinking you and the world are separate, the burden of having to handle everything alone, and the pressure of having to compete with others. Instead, you can feel the safety of being connected to everything. When you're struggling, there are people who will help. When you're doing well, there are people who will celebrate with you. And even when you die, the influences you've left will continue. Your sense of responsibility also changes. You become more deeply aware of how your actions affect other people and the environment. At the same time, you understand how other people's actions affect you, so you can become more tolerant. Interest in environmental and social problems naturally increases. You realize that the destruction of the Earth's environment ultimately affects you too, and that social inequality ultimately harms the stability of society as a whole. Your economic perspective also changes. You pursue win-win games instead of zero-sum games. You understand that other people's success doesn't mean your failure. When everyone does well, you can do well together. Great changes also happen in human relationships. You don't see the other person as a completely separate being, but as a being connected to you. you understand that the other person's happiness is your happiness, and the other person's suffering is your suffering. This is the foundation of true compassion. Not compassion that comes from moral duty, but natural compassion that flows from actually realizing that all beings are connected as one. Not letting go of results and enjoying the process. One of the most practical ways to actually apply the wisdom of emptiness is to do your best while not being attached to results. This might sound contradictory, but it actually often brings better results. First, let's look at why being overly attached to results often produces poor outcomes. Excessive attachment to results creates anxiety and pressure. In this emotional state, creativity decreases, the possibility of making mistakes increases, and flexible responses become difficult. The choking effect in sports psychology is a good example. When you're so nervous about getting good results that you tense up, you actually perform worse than usual. This happens when Olympic athletes who were sure to win gold make last-minute mistakes, or when you score lower than your ability on important tests. I remember a story a pianist told me. When he was young, he was always tense because of the obsession that he had to win first place in competitions. Even during performances, he kept worrying about the judges' reactions and made frequent mistakes. But one day, when he performed with the mindset of just enjoying the music itself, he was able to give his best performance ever, and from then on, he became a true musician. Conversely, when you reduce the pressure about results and focus on the process, better results often come. This is what psychologist Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi researched as the, quote, flow state. When you're completely absorbed, your sense of time disappears and you naturally demonstrate your best abilities. How can you enter this state? First, distinguish between goals and attachment. Goals are like a compass that shows direction. An attachment is being completely hung up on that goal. Set goals, but have the ease of knowing that goal isn't the only measure of success. One entrepreneur said this, "I always set goals, but I think it's okay if I don't reach them. What's important is learning and growing in the process of walking toward the goal. Sometimes I don't reach the goal, but get even better results." Second, pay more attention to the process. Focus on doing your best in this moment, rather than on results. Focus on learning through the study process rather than test scores, on growth through work rather than promotion. One student shared this experience. Until high school, I only cared about test scores. But when I came to university, I focused on learning really interesting things. Then my grades actually got better, and most importantly, studying became enjoyable. Third, keep multiple possibilities open. Don't insist on just one result. Acknowledge various possibilities. Have the mindset that if Plan A doesn't work, there's Plan B and Plan C. Many entrepreneurs in Silicon Valley use this approach. They use a strategy called pivoting, boldly changing direction when the original plan doesn't work well. Twitter also started as a podcast platform but changed direction to microblogging. Fourth, see failure as a learning opportunity. Even if you don't get the results you want, think of it not as the end, but as a new beginning. The lessons learned from failure can become the foundation for greater success. The story of Edison making thousands of failures before inventing the light bulb is famous. When someone said, "You failed thousands of times," Edison reportedly answered, "No, I discovered thousands of ways that the light bulb doesn't work." Fifth, distinguish between short-term and long-term results. Don't be swayed by immediate results. Evaluate your growth and development from a long-term perspective. Warren Buffett said, "The stock market is a voting machine in the short term, but a weighing machine in the long term. This means it's influenced by emotions and trends in the short term, but substantial value is reflected in the long term." Sixth, distinguish between what you can control and what you can't. You can control effort, but results are determined by various factors. Focus your energy only on the parts you can control. The ancient Greek Stoic philosopher Epictetus said, "Some things are within our control and some are not. Focus only on what you can control." This is wisdom that's still valid 2,000 years later. Seventh, cultivate a grateful heart. When you're grateful for what you've achieved so far, the help around you, and the opportunities given to you, the desperation about results decreases. According to research by gratitude researcher Robert Emmons, cultivating a grateful heart reduces stress and improves overall well-being. There's also the interesting result that grateful people have higher goal achievement rates. What Krishna said to Arjuna in the Bhagavad Gita shows this wisdom well. You have the right to action alone, not to the fruits thereof. Don't be attached to the results of action, and don't be attached to inaction either. Similar concepts are appearing in modern business management. Agile methodology says don't try to make perfect plans and execute them exactly. Flexibly adjust plans according to changing situations. Lean startup methodology says don't invest long periods trying to make perfect products. Quickly make products with minimal features, see market reactions, and improve from there. The common point of these approaches is giving up attachment to results and focusing on continuous learning and improvement. The art of love without possession. One of the areas where the wisdom of emptiness is most needed is human relationships. We want to possess the people we love, hope they'll never change, and want them to act according to our expectations. But this kind of attachment often ruins relationships and suffocates the other person. True love is freedom, not possession. It's accepting the other person as they are, sincerely wishing for their growth and happiness, and sometimes being able to bless them, even when they move away from you. This is what the Great Perfection of Wisdom Sutra calls love without gaining. This wisdom is especially important in parent-child relationships. Many parents treat their children like their possessions, expect them to fulfill their own dreams, and want them to grow in the direction they desire. But children are independent personalities who must walk their own paths. One mother told me this story. When my son was young, I tried to raise him the way I wanted. I told him to learn piano, to study hard, but the child gradually grew distant from me. One day the child said, "Mom, it seems like you don't love me. You love the me that you want me to be." I was really shocked then. That mother said she tried to accept her child as he was after that. She respected the child's choices, supported him even when he failed, and tried to understand even when he had different values from her. Then I actually became closer to my child, and the child was able to grow up with more confidence. It's the same in romantic relationships or marriage. When you try to change the other person, make them fit your expectations, or think you must become completely one, the relationship suffocates. A healthy relationship is two independent beings choosing to be together. I can't live without you might sound romantic, but it actually puts a big burden on the other person. True love is the heart that says, I can be happy without you, but I'm happier when I'm with you. Psychologist Erich Fromm distinguished between mature and immature love in The Art of Loving. Immature love is, I love you because I need you, and mature love is, I need you because I love you. Jealousy is also an emotion that comes from possessiveness. You can't stand the other person being close to someone else, want them to look only at you, and expect them to spend all their time with you. But this attitude gradually pushes the other person away. One husband shared this experience. In the early days of marriage, I was even jealous when my wife met with friends. I expressed dissatisfaction about why she didn't just stay with me. But watching my wife gradually become withdrawn and unhappy, I realized I was saying I loved my wife, but actually constraining her. That husband said he actively supported his wife's social activities after that. When my wife came back happier after spending enjoyable time with friends, I was happier too. And my wife showed more affection toward me. The same principle applies to friendship. If you try to monopolize friends, want them to always have the same opinions as you, or get jealous when they hang out with other friends, the friendship breaks. True friendship is recognizing each other's differences, supporting each other's growth, and naturally accepting meetings and partings. So how can you specifically love without possessing? First, respect the other person's independence. Acknowledge and support that they have their own space, time, friends, hobbies, and dreams. Second, let go of expectations. Give up expectations that the other person must be this way or that way, and accept what they show you as it is. As they say, expectation is the mother of disappointment. The bigger the expectation, the bigger the disappointment. Third, practice unconditional love. Have the heart that says, I love you no matter what you're like, rather than, I'll love you if you do this for me. Of course, this doesn't mean unconditionally accepting all of the other person's behavior. Sometimes, setting clear boundaries can also be an expression of love. Fourth, focus on the quality of time together. It's more important how completely you focus on each other when you're together than being together for a long time. Truly communicating for a short time is better than spending a long time meaninglessly. Fifth, sincerely wish for the other person's growth, even if that growth brings changes to your relationship with them. If you truly love them, you should want them to become a better person. Sixth, accept parting as part of love. Every meeting has parting, and that's also a natural process. There are no eternal relationships, but memories of true love remain forever. Seventh, don't lose your grateful heart. Have the heart that the other person being with you is itself a gift. Nothing is taken for granted. Khalil Gibran sang in his poem On Love, love one another, but make not a bond of love. Let there be rather a moving sea between you. Give one another of your bread, but eat not from the same loaf. Sing and dance together and be joyous, but let each one of you be alone. Practicing this kind of love isn't easy. We've been exposed to messages of you must have and you must keep since childhood. But with gradual practice, you can increasingly love with freedom. Sev the wisdom of living with a free heart. When you embody the wisdom of emptiness, your heart becomes truly free. Your happiness is no longer determined by external conditions. You don't rise and fall with other people's evaluations. And you don't miss the present by being trapped in the past or worrying about the future. True freedom depends not on what you do, but on what kind of heart you do it with. The first characteristic of a free heart is being able to stay in the present. You can be completely in this moment without being caught up in regrets about the past or anxieties about the future. The past is already gone and can't be changed, and the future hasn't come yet and isn't certain. The only thing that's certain is this present moment. Practice staying in the present. Right now, feel your breath, feel your body's sensations, listen to the sounds around you. Whenever your thoughts wander to the past or future, practice gently returning to the present. Someone shared this experience. I used to always live worrying about the next thing. When I was a student, I worried about getting a job. After getting a job, I worried about promotion. After getting married, I worried about children. But one day I realized I wasn't enjoying this moment at all. After that, I consciously tried to focus on the present, and life became much richer. The second characteristic is being able to observe without judging. You can see and accept things as they are without immediately judging them as good or bad. When it rains, you accept it as just, it's raining, rather than annoying rain. When someone treats you unkindly, you observe, that person is behaving unkindly right now, rather than judging them as a bad person. Judgment puts us on an emotional roller coaster. When we judge something as good, we become attached to it, and when we judge something as bad, we reject it or get angry. But when we observe without judgment, our hearts become peaceful. It's like watching clouds. Whether they're black clouds or white clouds, they're just clouds, and they all pass. The third characteristic is recognizing the freedom of choice. In any situation, we have choices. Even if we can't change the situation itself, we can choose our response to it. As Viktor Frankl said, everything can be taken from a human being but one thing, the last of human freedoms, the ability to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances. Every moment we're making choices, whether to get angry or endure, whether to resent or forgive, whether to despair or have hope. When you recognize this freedom of choice, you can escape victim consciousness and have owner consciousness. The fourth characteristic is being less attached to results. You can do your best while letting go of outcomes. You accept that the results of effort don't always come out the way you want, and when results different from expectations come out, you can accept them as new opportunities. The fifth characteristic is being less shaken by others' evaluations. You know that how other people think of you doesn't determine your value. When you receive praise, you're happy but don't get conceited, and when you receive criticism, you listen carefully but don't get discouraged. The sixth characteristic is not fearing change. Since you accept that everything is impermanent and changes, you don't resist change. Rather, you see change as an opportunity for growth and are open to new possibilities. The seventh characteristic is being compassionate toward yourself and others. You forgive your imperfect self and understand others who make mistakes. You know that all beings want to escape suffering. and you can see their mistakes and wrongdoings as expressions of that suffering. Let me suggest specific ways to cultivate this free heart. Make a habit of meditating for 5 minutes every morning when you wake up. You don't need complex techniques. Just sit quietly and focus on your breathing or feel your body's sensations. This small habit determines your mindset for the entire day. Practicing labeling emotions is also helpful. Try objectively observing emotions and naming them like, I'm angry right now, I'm anxious right now, I'm happy right now. This way you can step back and see without being completely swept away by emotions. Have reflection time before ending each day. Look back on what moments you are attached to today and what moments you are free. Don't judge. Just observe and use it as learning for tomorrow. Increase time spent with nature. Nature is the best teacher, showing impermanence and change. By watching seasonal changes, weather changes, and plants growing and withering, you can learn the naturalness of change. Try art or creative activities. Drawing, listening to music, writing poetry, or dancing make you immerse in the present moment and experience freedom of heart. Talk with people who have diverse perspectives. You can escape from your fixed thoughts and have broader viewpoints. Listen with an open mind to people who have different opinions from yours. Practice volunteer work or sharing. By helping others, you can avoid being buried only in your own problems and have a bigger perspective. Try writing a gratitude journal. Writing down things you're grateful for every day helps you realize the preciousness of what you currently have and reduces attachment to wanting more. Don't be afraid of failure or mistakes and try new challenges. Don't shrink back from fear about results. Challenge yourself with the heart of enjoying the process itself. Living with the wisdom of emptiness. So far, we've deeply explored the wisdom of emptiness. We've learned that escaping attachment isn't nihilism, but actually the path to living a richer life. That having no fixed self isn't despair, but means infinite possibilities. And that everything being connected doesn't mean loneliness, but gives deep safety. Living with the wisdom of emptiness doesn't mean doing nothing. Rather, it enables you to live more actively and creatively. Fear of failure decreases so you can take on new challenges. You worry less about others' gazes so you can walk your own path. And attachment to results decreases so you can enjoy the process itself. I remember the story of a painter. He said that in his youth he only painted things other people would like in order to gain fame. But those paintings, though technically excellent, had no soul. One day he put down all expectations and greed and started painting only what he really wanted to paint. Then people actually liked his work more, and he was able to become a true artist. Relationships also become healthier. Since you don't try to possess the other person, you can love more truly. Since your desire to defend yourself decreases, you can communicate with a more open heart. And you can naturally accept the other person's changes. One couple told me this story. After 20 years of marriage, the husband suddenly quit his job and said he wanted to start new work. At first, the wife was very anxious, but after learning the wisdom of emptiness, she decided to support her husband's choice. At first, I was really scared. But when I trusted and supported my husband, our relationship actually deepened, and my husband achieved great success in his new work. You can also achieve better results at work. You can approach things more creatively by escaping the pressure to be perfect. You can make innovative attempts because you don't fear mistakes. And teamwork also improves. A Silicon Valley CEO said this: "Our company has a culture of fail fast. Don't waste time making perfect plans. Try quickly, and if you fail, learn quickly and do better next time. Thanks to this culture, we were able to innovate faster." It also greatly helps personal growth. You can find the balance of acknowledging your limitations while not giving up. You can keep trying new things without being trapped by past mistakes, and you can grow at your own pace without comparing yourself to others. One student shared this experience. "Until high school, I always lived comparing myself to others. Who studied better, who was more popular? But when I came to university and learned the wisdom of emptiness, I realized how meaningless such comparisons were. Now I only focus on whether today's me is even a little better than yesterday's me. Then my grades actually improved, and my heart became more comfortable." The wisdom of emptiness isn't some special philosophy or religious belief. It's seeing the reality of life accurately. That everything changes, that everything is connected, that there are no fixed entities. These are facts proven scientifically too. Quantum mechanics in modern physics says particles exist not as fixed entities, but as clouds of probability. Biology says all living things constantly exchange matter and change. Ecology says all beings live depending on each other. Neuroscience says the self is an illusion created by various areas of the brain. The wisdom of emptiness is not just knowing these scientific facts with your head, but experiencing them with your heart. That's why life changes. But this wisdom isn't acquired overnight. It gradually deepens through steady practice and reflection. At first, it might be difficult to understand or hard to practice. But if you start with small things and gradually apply them, you'll experience their effects. Sometimes you might fall back into attachment. That's also a natural process. Don't criticize yourself. Just wake up again. Pursuing perfection itself is also a kind of attachment. What's important is direction. Making efforts, even little by little, to escape from attachment, cultivate a free heart, and look at life from a broader perspective. That effort itself is already practicing the wisdom of emptiness. A Zen master said this: "Pursuing enlightenment is also attachment. But through that attachment, you learn how to escape from all attachments." This is like using one thorn to remove another thorn. Ultimately, you must throw away all thorns, but in the process, you need skillful means. Practicing the wisdom of emptiness is the same. At first, conscious effort is needed, but gradually it becomes natural. It's like learning to ride a bicycle. At first, you make all kinds of efforts to maintain balance, but once you get used to it, you can ride naturally. It's also important to find companions to journey with. Don't try to solve everything alone. Learn and grow together with people who have similar values. Share each other's experiences and encourage each other as you walk together. In modern times, there are various forms of community. You can meet such companions in meditation groups, reading groups, online communities, etc. Paths that are difficult alone can become enjoyable journeys when traveled together. Finally, what's most important is compassion toward yourself. Accept your imperfect self, forgive yourself when you make mistakes, and don't lose the will to keep growing. Only with self-compassion is true compassion toward others possible. The wisdom of emptiness makes us more human, not becoming perfect robots, but becoming imperfect but warm humans. We make mistakes and fall down, but each time we get up and keep walking. I sincerely pray that your lives become more free, peaceful, and meaningful through this wisdom of emptiness. Escaping the chains of attachment and experiencing true freedom. That's the greatest gift the great perfection of Wisdom Sutra gives us. Starting today, please begin practicing letting go of attachments one by one. When you wake up in the morning, try resolving, "Today I'll enjoy the process without being attached to results." When conflict arises with someone, try thinking, "That person also wants to be happy just like me." When things don't go according to plan, try accepting, "This could also be the beginning of new possibilities." When these small practices accumulate, one day you'll experience amazing changes. Even in the same situations, your heart will be more comfortable. Even with the same people, relationships will improve. Even with the same work, it will feel more meaningful. The wisdom of emptiness isn't a distant ideal. It's a concrete way of life that can be practiced right here, right now, in our daily lives. I cheer for all of you to walk this beautiful path of wisdom, and I pray that all beings may be freed from attachment and enjoy true happiness. Thank you for sharing this beautiful meditation text with me.